China from last year, or particularly if you didn't have me last year, like some of you, what you're going to want to know, because I can't obviously cram all of last year's China unit into this year and still do this year. So we're just going to get a couple key points we need to know. So here you go. The first big thing that we have to remember or know about ancient China is this idea of the mandate of heaven. This is tremendously important with how things are going to change in China. And essentially, the mandate of heaven was an agreement between the ruler and the gods. If you want to sound fancy, you say a pact, because, I mean, come on, that sounds pretty cool. So an agreement between the ruler and the gods. And essentially, the gods are saying, look, all right, Hayden, you are the ruler of China. You are the big kahuna, the head honcho, the grand poobah, all right? And only you, Hayden, are allowed to be the big kahuna, grand poobah, head honcho of China. And your descendants, of course. But you have to be virtuous. That's right. Those virtues we teach here at Frederick Classical Charter School, they have lasted the test of time. I'm freezing too. And so part of it is, it's like, okay, look, Hayden, if you're not virtuous, the gods will take the power from you and give it to Nora and have Nora be, the head honcho, the grand poobah, the ruler. And so basically, it's going to have some rights that the ruler has. So first off, if you go and have the mandate of heaven, you are going to be the religious ruler. Also, you're going to have total power. Because think about it. The gods are saying you are in charge. So therefore, you're basically acting on behalf of the gods. So it's a lot of power and responsibility given to you in that position. But here's the thing. Once again, if you are not virtuous, it is the people's duty to overthrow you, because they say you lost the mandate. You have lost the right to heaven. And basically, this means you have to be virtuous. If a ruler stops being virtuous, now the people might not know it yet, but it says from the mandate that the heavens are going to show it. So if Nora, is an awesome ruler, she's kind and loving and her people love her, but then her granddaughter, Nora the fifth, winds up being an evil Nora and is not letting her people eat and is being cruel and throwing people in the dungeon and all that, all of a sudden there might be famine. So not enough food. There might be floods. There might be shooting stars in the sky, things like that. And then the people are like, something's going on with this, Nora the fifth. And they're supposed to overthrow her if she is not being virtuous. Good afternoon, or good morning, Elaine. Nice to see you. Good morning, Lydia, as well. Sorry I didn't see you pop in. So we see mandate of heaven, an agreement between heaven and the ruler saying, you get to rule, and, the gods will stay happy if you're a good ruler. Now, if you remember, this was invented by the Zhou dynasty as their excuse to overthrow the Shang dynasty. So whether you want to, odds are Eli is not going and shaking hand with the gods up in the sky saying, all right, I'll be the ruler and I'll be nice. That didn't happen, but this is more like a philosophy. So what we're going to see here, and you don't have to write this down here, but we're going to have a cyclical cycle where we're going to see the same thing time and time again with China. We saw this happen last year, and we're going to see this happen a lot this year. So Nora the fifth is a cruel ruler, and a new, more powerful dynasty will get the mandate after overthrowing her. So that new, more powerful ruler, we'll call her Rachel the Great, takes over. And Rachel the Great reforms society. She brings back to peace and harmony. The peasants have food. The people are trading. It becomes very prosperous. We don't have invasions. People are protected. Everything is good and hunky-dory. But as time goes by, with all that goodness, Rachel's great-great-great-grand Rachel, Rachel the fifth, winds up too forgetting how things were, why her dynasty came in power in the first place. So it winds up becoming corrupt and bad. And therefore, they're thinking, oh, well, I want more palaces. I want more riches. They start raising taxes. People stop having food. People start invading. And Rachel's family loses the mandate of heaven again. And then we'll see the disasters, the floods, the droughts, the famine, the Mongols attacking. People rebel, overthrow them, and once again, another mandate happen. Another family gets a mandate. So we see it's a cycle that happens time and time and time again. Does this make sense so far? Any questions on this? It's so cold in here. All right. So we left off last year with the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty, of course, was our dynasty that got rid of Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi. I'm so bummed that we didn't get to watch the China's first emperor video, because it was like cool. You get to watch this guy like descend into madness and like demand an immortality potion, and because everybody's afraid of him, they like just start giving him stuff. And of course, the immortality potion had mercury in it, which wanted to make him go super crazy and paranoid and extra mean and terrible. And then, like, of course, also poisoned him. You missed a good time, guys. Anyways, the Han Dynasty shows this cycle though perfectly. We see Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi was terrible. They overthrow his son. And we see the Han as a time of growth, of trade. We see tons of achievements happening. Later on in this unit, we're going to talk about Chinese inventions and discoveries, and many of them happened during the Han period. We start seeing the Silk Road, which Mitz Anzik totally gave you guys props, saying you guys remember the Silk Road from last year, even though we barely got to talk about it because, of course, continuity of learning, and it was hard. But yeah, where we had the trade going across from China, to India, to Western Asia, even Europe. I'm never going to ask you the things traded on the Silk Road, so you don't have to be writing all of these things down with it. But you do need to know that silk was the primary trade good. Remember, the Silk Road was not a road made out of silk. It was not even a real road. It was the trade route from east to west, which is going to wind up having tremendous impacts on the world. For example, things like Buddhism, which, goodness gracious, I think we learned about Buddhism. No, we were still in school when we did Buddhism. It was when we got to the Gupta. But those ideas of Buddhism left India, followed the Silk Road to go to China. Buddhism becomes the dominant religion in China for a while. Later on this year, and actually this unit, we're going to learn how Buddhism then goes to Korea and Japan through this. So the Silk Road is incredibly important because not only did stuff move, but so did ideas. And we know by now, ideas are the most important things that sometimes move through the world. Of course, to do all of this, they had a huge government. We learned that fancy vocabulary word last year, bureaucracy, when you have a ton of government workers. But it follows the cyclical cycle. By the way, this is this white lines. This is the Silk Road going across, if you were curious. People become corrupt. Dishonest workers start going. It's Celeste's job to guard the Great Wall of China. And she goes to her office and she puts her feet up. She starts playing Animal Crossing on her Nintendo Switch, doesn't even notice that right outside there are some nomads breaking down the wall. Nora is in charge of, I just used Nora, so never mind. Iris is in charge of trading. And then Iris goes, instead of going and bringing the profits, the tax money to the government, winds up going and pocketing half of it so that she can go, I don't know, fancy hair clips or something like that. I don't know what girls like. So you see, all these things. Joel is supposed to go on expeditions to go protect the Silk Road, and instead he winds up taking a nap, and marauders and bandits come and start harassing the caravans and making it so the trade stops. So we see, once again, for the Han Dynasty, where we left off last year, it started off great. Dishonest workers came in, and we see the cycle of our mandate of heaven. They lose the mandate. It goes bad. Exactly, Iris. And that's where we're going to be left this year. We're going to start at the very fall of the Han Dynasty for China, how terrible things are. We're going to have a period of disunion. It's going to be terrible. Yeah, so there we go. So that is our notes for the day. I'm stopping the recording